Good morning. It is currently 10:45 a.m. Sunday, October 1st, 2023, and it is 79 degrees here in Yankton, South Dakota. I'm waiting to pick up a load of aluminum going to Pella, Iowa. I kind of like this run. It's a decent little run, and I like going to Pella. Pella's a nice little town. Last time I was there, I hiked into town about a mile. It's about a mile from the truck stop that I park at, and I got some good pizza for dinner. And it's a very cute little town. Pella is pretty much it there, though. I mean, they have a huge warehouse. I'm pretty sure that's their corporate headquarters. And man, I tell you what, I mean, they're a pretty big deal in that town. And of course, I've heard of Pella windows, but to be honest with you, I've never heard of Pella, Iowa until I started delivering there. For those of you who don't know, I'm a retired police officer. I did 25 years. I retired as a special victims detective, and when I retired, I wanted to start my own business and have my own truck by now, but the economy kind of went in the tank and just didn't make sense to invest that kind of money to do that right now. So I'm driving for a pretty big company, and it's okay. I get paid pretty well for what I do. But anyway, what I like to do sometimes, I like to get on here and talk about a little bit about my trucking and a little bit about things I did as a cop, or maybe even some current events that's going on as far as law enforcement related. I've seen some videos of people kind of reacting to things that cops do, and what I can tell you on those videos is a lot of times there's a whole lot more than this to the story. I mean, I don't understand how people can watch a 3-minute video and then come to a conclusion about what should happen and what the cop should have done, and all this, that, and the other. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, I was a detective for a number of years, and I've investigated more critical incidents than I can even remember, and it just doesn't make sense to me how people can, because I watch those videos and I can't make a conclusion whether or not the cop is right or wrong, and I don't support cops just because I was a cop. But you got all these people in here making all these reactions and getting mad because of a 3-minute video that they saw that they didn't like. And let me tell you, just because you don't like the outcome doesn't mean the cop was wrong. Not liking the outcome is not breaking the law. It's not violating policy or anything like that. It's just somebody doesn't like the outcome. And I can tell you, you can put 10 different cops in the same situation, and you're going to come up with multiple solutions, multiple endings. Sometimes you may think the ending is okay, and sometimes you may think the ending is not okay. And it doesn't mean that, just because it was done different, that the people who did it differently, doesn't mean that they're wrong. But anyway, so I haven't made a video in a while, and I just want to get on here, and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about traffic type stuff, and I also want to tell you a story about the last major case that I worked. It was a road rage incident where somebody ended up passing away, and I've been kind of thinking about whether or not I wanted to do this video or not, just because it was so fresh, and I guess it's been a couple of years now, so I guess it's not as fresh as I guess some people wouldn't think it's fresh, but it honestly, as far as critical incident investigations, it's still pretty fresh. But it's an incident that I closed, and a lot of people weren't happy about it, and a lot of people agreed with me, and a lot of people didn't agree with me. But it is what it is. But anyway, so I was driving the other day, and I was driving the speed limit, 35 miles per hour, and all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but a car starts passing me, and they're doing probably 45 or 50 miles an hour. And I can estimate speeds pretty accurately. That's one of the things that we had to be able to show that we can do to be radar certified as a cop, is we drove around and we would be with a trainer, and we would estimate speeds of vehicles while we're driving and also while we were stationary. And we had to be, I think within 3 miles per hour of the actual speed, and then they would confirm it with radar. And we had to do that. We had to have a certain percentage to pass. And I passed no problem. All of us did. But in any case, that's how I can pretty accurately judge speeds. And I usually give about a 5 mile an hour window, just because. But anyway, so this car starts overtaking me, and they were doing about 45 to 50 miles per hour. And this is a 35 mile per hour zone. Well, there was oncoming traffic, and one of the vehicles in the oncoming lanes was wanting to make a left-hand turn, which crosses our paths. I was plenty far enough back for them to make their turn. The car that was speeding had just pulled up right alongside of me and was in the process of passing me. And so when they look this far, they see that they have enough time and space to turn, because they're in a 35 mile per hour zone, and there's plenty of time and space for them to make their turn. So they start making their turn. Well, the car that was speeding, as they passed me, they looked like they tapped their brakes, but it was only enough to activate the brake lights. And then as the vehicle making the left-hand turn continued to make a left-hand turn, that car appeared to have actually sped up at the last second. And, there wasn't a collision or anything, but, it was almost like the person that was speeding had the attitude, or has the attitude, well, they pulled out in front of me. And I've heard people say that before. So, I mean, it's a pretty common thought, I think, is people say, well, they pulled out in front of me, so if we have an accident, it's their fault. Not necessarily. And you could actually, that person could have actually, had there been an accident, that person could have actually been charged with a crime, in my opinion. Because that car sees us, all of us pretty far back, and if they can't estimate speeds like that, they're going to assume that, hey, they have plenty of time to make this left turn. But they didn't, because of the car was speeding. And if somebody pulls out in front of you and you have time to take some kind of evasive action, you should. If you don't, and if you should have, and if you don't, now you may not have taken an evasive action because you weren't paying attention. And if that's the case, there could be some culpability there. They could assign a certain percentage to the person that made the left-hand turn, and a certain percentage to the person who wasn't paying attention, or to the one that was speeding and just had the thought, or the possible thought of, well, they pulled out in front of me. And on that particular case, on that particular incident, had an accident occurred, I would have stopped, and I would have offered my assistance to the police as far as what I observed, and let them know that I was going 35 miles an hour, and also to let them know that I have an outward-facing traffic cam, or a dash cam, I guess, and offer that up as evidence as well. But yeah, I think the person could actually be charged with a crime, and where I'm from, it would have been aggravated assault, maybe even aggravated battery if anybody got injured during the incident. But that's kind of that little incident that I wanted to talk about. And I want to talk, actually, while I was telling you this story, I want to tell you a couple of incidents where I almost had a couple really bad accidents in my semi because of people coming straight into my lane. The first one, I was up in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and I was on the interstate, and there was a semi coming off of getting on an entrance ramp for the interstate. And what I normally do is I hit my turn signal, I check my mirrors, and if I can, I move over into the next lane to clear up that traffic lane for that entering car. I do that for semis and other vehicles. I do that as much as I can. Well, the car next to me was not getting over, and so I let off of the accelerator a little bit and did a quick assessment and decided, well, I'm not going to be able to get over, but if I maintain my speed, I'll be able to drive right by that semi, and then they can just get in right behind me. You know, traffic wasn't bad, other than this car was right next to me and didn't see my turn signal probably, so they weren't getting over either. Well, instead of the semi coming off of the Cloverleaf entrance ramp and staying in the acceleration lane, they just came off the Cloverleaf exit ramp and straight into my lane. And I had to slam on my brakes, and that allowed the car next to me to overtake me, and then I dipped in behind that car, and I avoided a collision of two semis. I was doing 63 to 65, and they were doing probably 45 maybe, but I avoided a pretty big collision by less than a foot. I mean, it was pretty nerve-wracking. And then that driver had the opportunity to pass me, but they refused to pass me after that until basically we came to an interchange and we went our separate ways. But I'm governed at what I can drive. I can't drive any faster than 65 miles an hour. This was an older long nose truck like Kenworth or Peterbilt or whatever that probably most definitely was not governed, because a lot of those older ones aren't, and he had plenty of opportunity to overtake me and just would not. And when we got to the interchange, we just went our separate ways. But I'm one of those people, I wasn't pissed off or anything. Shit happened and I was able to avoid it. That's what it is. The next one, I was actually on my way back up to St. Paul again. This was just the other day. And I'm driving on this U.S. highway. I believe it was 169 or 159. I forget which U.S. highway runs up through that St. Paul area. But anyway, oncoming traffic, and there was a box truck that was wanting to they had their left turn signal on, and it looked like they were making a left-hand turn. They start making their left-hand turn, and all I had to do was let off my accelerator, and they would have been able to complete their left-hand turn, and then I'd get back on my accelerator, and then we go on our merry way. Not a problem. There's no issue there. Just had to let off my accelerator a little bit, and that would have given them plenty of time and space to do their left turn. Problem is, they start doing a U-turn. So when they did their U-turn, they went all the way over onto the shoulder, and I thought, okay, if they just stay on the shoulder, I'll be able to drive right by them, and then they can blend in right behind me. Oh no. They went over to the shoulder and then straight back out into my travel lane, and I had to slam on my brakes again. And when we're under load, it takes 100 yards for these trucks to get stopped. And mind you, I'm doing 60 to 65 miles an hour at this point. And the last I noticed my speedometer, I was down to around 25 or 30 miles an hour, and I had to make that very abrupt slowdown from 65 to 25. It was pretty quick. I'm amazed that I did not hit them. And then, of course, they sped up and got out of Dodge. I was kind of ticked off at that one, because there were just all kinds of things that went wrong with that one. They should have waited, and if they were making a U-turn, that would have been fine, but they could have taken the shoulder, because it was a really wide shoulder, and they could have traveled on the shoulder to build up their speed, but instead they went from a dead stop, crossing 2 lanes of state highway traffic onto the shoulder, and then straight into the travel lane. They didn't. Sorry about that. I keep kicking my charging cable. So yeah, they're anyway. But avoided another accident. And I know that makes my camera go off, but my company hasn't said anything about either of those incidents, so they probably review them and decide that, yeah, you know, I was doing the right things. So anyway, so the road rage case I want to talk to you guys about. This was, like I said, I think if not the last critical incident I investigated, it's pretty close to being the last. So I get a call to go to the hospital where the driver of the vehicle is in the hospital and his wife is there, and because of a road rage incident. I get there and the wife starts telling me a story about how they were driving in their lane, and then all of a sudden an SUV pulls up next to them. I think it was an SUV. Pulls up next to them, and the adult passengers, the driver and the adult passengers start yelling and cussing at them, and they don't know why. Well, according to her, and let me throw out a little disclaimer. Everything I'm saying is 100% from memory. I don't have any notes with me. There may be some minor differences between what the investigation showed and their statements and what I'm saying now, but it's going to be minor, and the investigation and the statements and everything, that's what stands. That takes precedence over this video, because this video is clearly 100% from memory. But anyway, so she says that this vehicle overtakes them, makes a right-hand turn onto a different street, and that her husband follows them, and that SUV pulls over, her husband pulls over, and I guess she describes that there's going to be some kind of confrontation, and she says that that her husband approached the car. The person in the other vehicle, the driver of the other vehicle, gets out, punches her husband, and her husband falls to the ground. That vehicle, or he gets back in his vehicle and leaves. Well, the injury was, there was some blood on the scene from where he fell down onto the pavement, or where he's knocked down to the pavement, I guess. And he was transported to the hospital. Well, they gave a description of the SUV. I looked around for it all that night and just couldn't find it. And it was actually something pretty obvious I was looking for. That was during the winter time. So there was lots of salt residue described as being on the SUV, and she had slapped, I guess, the back of the SUV, I think the window. So I was looking for like some sort of SUV, you know, that colored SUV, and I think she actually even was able to give me the exact make and model. I think she was. So I was looking for that exact make and model with some sort of disturbance in the salt residue that was on the window. Couldn't find it, and went on my investigation. Well, the guy in the hospital was not doing well, and it was, I think it was pretty well expected, or at least suspected, that he was going to pass away. He was going to likely pass away. So I issued a press release, and I sent that to our public affairs officer. I think that's what she was called. I don't remember what her actual title was, but in any case, we would basically send her an email, say, hey, this is what I'd like to be in the press release, and can you please make that happen? So she came to me and she asked me, she says, do you really want all this in the press release? Because usually we're pretty vague, because we can't give a whole lot of information out. But I said, sure, you know, I do want that, because one of three things is going to happen. Either somebody's going to recognize that this incident happened because they were told by the person that did it, like they're a friend of the person, friend or family member is going to report their friend or family member is the person I'm looking for, or the person's going to come forward and say, hey, that's not the way that went down. And I forget what the third idea I had was. But in any case, at least one of those two things I felt was going to happen. Sure enough, within, gosh, I want to say it was an hour, maybe 2 hours of it hitting the media, I get a phone call, and it's a pretty frantic phone call from this guy. And he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "I was involved in that, and it did not go down like that. You have got to come talk to me." And so I went and talked to him, and I called our evidence collection unit out and told them, you know, hey, I'm going to want these things done to the vehicle. And I want to say maybe I went and talked to the guy first before calling our evidence collection unit out. Yeah, I think so. But in any case, so his statement varied from, or was different from the other people, the wife's statement. And so what he said happened was, he said they were driving through town. They were on their way to a family event with their kids, and their kids were in the back of the SUV, and they were in the front of the SUV, and they start passing this vehicle. And he said that the driver and the passenger of the other vehicle started yelling and throwing things at them. And he said at first they thought that he was getting shot, his car was getting shot with like a BB gun or something. I think that's what he said, but ultimately he came to the conclusion that it was likely they were throwing things at his vehicle, like maybe change. He said he could just hear some kind of tinging, I guess, to his car, you know. And I just remember him kind of formulating that they might have been throwing change at his car, because, you know, a lot of people keep change in their ashtray or whatever, and I know I have change in every vehicle that I have, I think. But in any case, you know, I just remember that being formulated to that. Well, he said that he did overtake them, and he made a right turn, and he said he made the right turn to check his vehicle for damage. You know, that's where the statement, I think, kind of got a little wishy-washy. But in any case, he said he made his right turn, and he said that he was in his vehicle, him and his family was in his vehicle, when the driver of the other vehicle came up and started slapping and beating on his vehicle and trying to open up his doors. He said at that point, he gets out, and he said there was a confrontation, and I wanted to say that the guy lunged or swung at him. I forget if he lunged at him or swung at him, but he said he defended himself, hit the guy fell down, and he left. I didn't think anything of it. And he showed me all these marks on his car, and there was actually a dent in one of the areas where he said the guy had hit, slapped, punched his car, whatever. And I want to say there was even a scratch too, but there was also the disturbance, I think, in the salt residue on the back window. And like I said, you know, all this is going from memory, so but I do remember there being things on the vehicle that I wanted to have photographed and processed, and that's when I called out the crime scene people and crime scene investigators, and I let them know, hey, you know, we need to treat this like a homicide because it's likely the guy in the hospital is going to pass away. So I end up interviewing the SUV driver's wife as well, and her story was pretty consistent with his. And it's kind of one of those things that, like, when I interview multiple people about a case, I expect there to be small differences here and there. You know, when people's stories are identical, and it's especially if it's complex, a complex scene, I get a little like, you know, can their stories be identical? Yeah, but man, you know, I just feel better when there's just little minute differences, you know, like one saying, yeah, he hit the car 2 to 4 times, and the other person saying he hit the car 3 to 5 times, things like that. Those would be the minute differences that I would expect. Exact stories, I'm just, because people have their own perspectives, so, especially in stressful situations. So anyway, during the investigation, I found that the driver of the SUV and their family had stopped at a convenience store, and I went into the convenience store to get their video and talk to the store. I don't remember if they had video or not. I think they did. Yeah, I think they did. But one of the things I wanted to check was I wanted to try and determine if this guy had a weapon on him. And ultimately, when the victim did pass away, I spoke with the coroner's office and said I wanted to pay particular attention to his jaw area to see if it was damaged, had some significant damage that was not consistent with just a straight punch. Like maybe that the guy had a weapon, like brass knuckles or a roll of coins in his hand or something like that. Then that could actually sway the case big time. Well, come to find out, the guy only had a little hole in his lip. It was probably from a tooth, and then had a little contusion on his head. They called it a subgaleal hemorrhage. Basically injured his scalp from where he fell on the pavement. And the hole, I guess, I never even thought of this, until just now. But the hole, I guess, could have came from if he actually hit something on the pavement. I just assumed that it could have been a tooth that was pushed through his lip, because I've seen that injury before. But anyway, when I learned they went to the convenience store, I went in to make sure that, trying to identify what he bought. And one of the things I actually was looking for was I wanted to see if he had bought a roll of quarters, because where he was going had a place for video games for his kids, and I thought, it's possible that he could have bought a roll of quarters beforehand, and because the thought was one punch doing all that it did. There was quite a bit of blood, which head and face, it's going to bleed. I mean, you're going to get a lot of blood from head and face injuries. It's just the way it is. And this was before I knew also that the only injury he had was the hole in his lip and the small laceration to his head. But anyway, none of that happened. And then I found video, basically I kind of came to the conclusion that I didn't think he had a weapon on him when he did the punch. And like I said, if he had a weapon, that could change things very badly, not in his favor at all. So I got a video. There was video of them driving by business, and to be honest with you, both people, from what I remember, describe the other vehicle as driving aggressively or crazy, fast, whatever. And the video that I saw, man, neither of them looked like they were driving in any kind of aggressive manner. There was and I want to say to the SUV driver, I think maybe said that when they were crossing the bridge, that the other vehicle was driving very slowly. I think that was it. The SUV said that the other vehicle was driving slowly. The wife of the victim said that they were driving fast, and I think that was it. But the video I showed, or the video that I saw just before them crossing the bridge, it looked like both of them were just driving along at normal speeds. I remember trying to calculate by how many seconds they were in video and how far they possibly traveled, and trying to calculate their speeds, and they weren't driving at breakneck or turtle speeds at all. I mean, they were just driving. So in any case, the guy ended up passing away, and and I ended up getting medical records from 2 different hospitals because he was transferred from one hospital to another, and then I got the coroner's report, and there were all 3 had like differences. At one point, at one point, one medical record said the guy arrested on scene, meaning he went into cardiac arrest. The other report said that the guy was arrested by the police on the scene, which did not happen. So, the medical records were just kind of squirrely, to be honest with you. But anyway, we had 2 completely different stories that neither of them seemed outrageous. And I ended up finding out too that the guy had some pretty significant health problems, and ultimately I had made the decision to close the case. And what I was good at is determining if my actions were going to cause some grief. So I got the chief's office involved in this. I got our DA's office involved in this. I staffed this case with I made a PowerPoint, and I don't remember if I emailed it to the chief's office or if I staffed it with him, but ultimately I staffed it with the district attorney and his number 1 and 2 people. And they both everybody agreed that if you send the case, there's just nothing, they basically said if I send the case over on any count for anything, they would not be able to file. And that was even trying to charge like a disorderly conduct charge. It just wasn't there. Had both people lived and there'd been a report, it would have been, I could have written them both a ticket for disorderly conduct, but that would be about it. Especially with the one medical record basically saying that the guy had a heart attack on the scene, and the pretty significant health issues that was found during the autopsy. But anyway, the wife, rightfully so, was angry. I had no problem with her being angry at me. It's just part of the job. People don't like some of the conclusions I came to. I remember I had one of his friends call me. He called me from a different state. I want to say it was from Texas. And basically, he was getting everything from the wife because she was the only witness to this on their side. And he told me, how could I not charge him? The guy's skull was crushed in. And I told him, no, that was not the extent of his injuries. I even specifically looked for major injuries that would not be consistent with just a simple punch, and didn't find any. But it's just an example of how 2 versions of a story can ultimately be a stalemate for the conclusion. And like I said, some people don't get happy, or a lot of times people aren't happy with that, and it is what it is. And I'm there to take a lot of that punishment and and try to be cordial with the people who do not agree with what we can and can't do. And like I said, I staffed this with the highest of people and said, this is it. I want to say even the chief's office had another detective look into it just to see if there would be a different conclusion, and there wasn't. So, but anyway, that's my story for the day. I'll try to get into making some more videos. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to hear some more stories, and also leave some comments. And if you want my opinion on some current events, let's get to talking. I've been thinking about trying to give my opinions on different current events and different videos where people think that officers did wrong, and where lawsuits ended up being settled and all that stuff. But anyway, you guys have a good day.